As long as we're on the topic of artboards, I want to show you another change that's been made in Illustrator CS5, this time to how the artboards are tracked by the rulers. I'm still working inside 10pagejumble.ai, found inside the O1 Make Doc folder. The result you're seeing, of course, is subject to the changes I made in the previous exercise. Also note that I'm still working inside of the artboard edit mode. Now, I'm going to go up to the View menu and choose Rulers, and then I'm going to choose Show Rulers or press Control-R, Command-R on the Mac, a fairly standard keyboard shortcut for bringing up the rulers. Notice that I have a horizontal ruler along the top of the illustration and a vertical ruler along the left-hand side. Also notice that my unit of measure is set to points. If you want to override that, you can do it as simply as right-clicking on either one of the rulers and choosing the desired unit of measure. In my case, I'll choose, for example, inches. And that'll change both the horizontal ruler and the vertical ruler in kind. Now, notice that we're seeing a major tick mark every 4 inches based on how far we're zoomed out from the illustration. And we're seeing a series of minor tick marks in between. I also want you to note the location of that 0, point. That is the point at which both the horizontal ruler and the vertical ruler are 0. And I'm going to mark that with a pair of guidelines. So I'll drag a guide from the vertical ruler like so, press the Shift key to lock it into alignment with the nearest tick mark, and drop it at 0 in the horizontal ruler. Then I'll drag a guideline from the horizontal ruler, press the Shift key, and drop it at 0 in the vertical ruler. And that right there is my 0, point. I'll press Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on the Mac to deselect those guidelines. Now then, notice that I have Artboard 10 selected down here in the lower right corner of the illustration. Also notice up here in the Control panel that I have my top left point selected in a reference point matrix, and that the X value is 24.25 inches and the Y value is 8.92 inches. In other words, the top left corner of this page is 24.25 inches to the right from the 0 point and 8.92 inches down from that 0 point. If I wanted to align the top left corner of this artboard to that guide intersection right there, then I'll go ahead and turn off Move Copy Artwork with Artboard so I don't make a mess of my artwork. And then I would change the X and Y values to 0 apiece, like so. And that's all it takes. Now I've aligned that top left corner. So what I want you to notice is that gobs and gobs of coordinate positioning values inside of Illustrator are measured from that 0, point. I'm going to go ahead and press Control-Z a couple of times in a row. That's Command-Z a couple of times on the Mac to reset the position of that artboard. The other thing to notice here, there's only one 0, point for the entire illustration, and that's the way it is when you're working in the artboard edit mode. And that used to be the way it was all the time inside of Illustrator. I'll show you a change that's been made in CS5 in just a moment. Also notice its odd position. The 0, point is located along the top of Artboard 1, but about midway into it, a little bit over to the right. At one time, when I first started this document, you may recall that it only contained 8 artboards, so that 0, point used to be at the top left corner of the first artboard. But since I've moved my artboards around, things have shifted. However, that's a change from the way it used to be. In Illustrator CS4 and earlier, back to the dawn of time where Illustrator is concerned, the 0, point was located in the bottom left corner. And the reason for that was that's how it was set up inside of PostScript. So when you're coding in PostScript, the PostScript printing language, then 0 is the bottom left corner of the artboard. And that's the way it's been since 1985 when the first PostScript laser printer was released. And Illustrator has clung on tightly to that convention even though it didn't make sense to most users. Now we have a ruler point that's located top left. It gets even better than that though. But before I show you, why don't we go ahead and reset the 0, point to the top left corner of the artboard, and I'll do that either by dragging from this ruler intersection down into the artboards in order to set the 0, point exactly where I want it to be, or I could just double click in that area to set the 0, point at the top left corner of the active artboard, which in this case is Artboard 10. So what I need to do is click on Artboard 1 and then double click again. There's our 0, point in the top left corner of Artboard 1. Wonderful. Now I'm going to go up to the View menu and choose the Guides command way down here, and then I'm going to choose Clear Guides to get rid of those guidelines that I created. All right, so here's the other bit of wonderful news where the rulers are concerned. And so far, I would say everything I've showed you is kind of, yeah, that's interesting. This is great news. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the Selection tool, by clicking on it or pressing the V key. And notice now, if I switch from Artboard 1, which is active, you can tell that Artboard 1, by the way, is active because it has a black outline around its perimeter where the other artboards have gray outlines. So if I click in Artboard 2, notice the ruler shift. So now I have a 0, 0 point that's at the top left corner of page 2. And now it moves to page 3 as soon as I click inside of Artboard 3. And now it moves to page 4 when I click inside of Artboard 4. And why am I calling in pages as I click inside them? Because that's the way it works inside of a standard multi-page layout program. Each artboard gets its own unique set of rulers. If you don't like that, by the way, at any time you can change your mind by going up to the View menu, choosing Rulers, and then choosing Change to Global Rulers. Then you're going to have a set of rulers that's uniform across all the artboards, regardless of which artboard is active. And there's a couple of other ways to get to that command. You can press Control-Shift-R here on a PC or Command-Shift-R on a Mac. Or, I'll go ahead and escape out there, you can right-click on one of the rulers and change it that way as well. And I'll show you, if I change to global rulers, even though I'm working on Artboard 7, the 0, 0 point is positioned at the top left corner of Artboard 1. Now, the reason I didn't show you that when we were in the Artboard Edit mode was because it's not an option. If you go to Rulers, you'll see that Change to Artboard Rulers is dimmed because you only get global rulers when you're working inside of the Artboard Edit mode. And again, that 0, 0 point remains fixed regardless of which page is selected. And that's how rulers work with artboards inside of Illustrator CS5.